There comes a time in life when the roles between parents and children start to shift. You spend decades raising them, guiding them, teaching them, sacrificing for them. You're the one who wakes up in the middle of the night when they cry, the one who puts food on the table before you take your first bite, the one who stands quietly at the back of the school auditorium while they shine under the lights. For years, your life is centered around making sure they are safe, cared for, and loved. But then one day, something changes. Maybe it's subtle at first, they start making decisions without asking your opinion. They call less often. They don't seem to value your advice the way they used to. Or maybe it's more obvious, they dismiss what you say, they speak over you, they make you feel outdated, irrelevant, or, worst of all, like a burden. And when that happens, it hurts. If your children have started treating you with less respect than you deserve, you might feel frustrated. You might feel invisible. You might even feel betrayed. A part of you wants to remind them of everything you've done, of the years you put their needs before your own, of the sacrifices you made without complaint, of the love you gave without condition. But here's the hard truth, getting angry won't fix it. In fact, anger often makes it worse. Arguments create more distance. Demands for respect can be met with defensiveness or resentment. So what do? How do you regain the respect of your children without fighting, without damaging the relationship, and without filling your heart with bitterness? The answer is not in forcing them to change, but in changing how you respond. Today, I'm going to share 6 powerful things you can do when your children don't respect you. These are not tricks. They're not manipulations. They are shifts, in your mindset, in your actions, in your boundaries, that can transform the way your children see you. Some of these might surprise you. Some might feel uncomfortable at first. But if you stay with me until the end, you'll see exactly how to regain your place as a respected, valued figure in their lives, not because you demanded it, but because you naturally inspired it. So let's begin. Action 1: Stop chasing their approval. One of the biggest mistakes parents make, especially as they grow older, is trying too hard to please their children. Maybe you've noticed yourself doing it. You say yes when you want to say no. You rearrange your plans to fit theirs. You put their needs ahead of your own, not just sometimes, but all the time, hoping that if you just give enough, they'll appreciate you more. But here's the painful truth: the more you chase their approval, the less they respect you. Respect isn't earned through constant self-sacrifice. It's earned through self-respect. When you're always bending over backwards, always trying to keep the peace, you're quietly teaching them that your feelings, your needs, and your time come second. And once they start believing that, it becomes very easy for them to take you for granted. I once knew a woman named Margaret. In her younger years, she was strong, independent, and full of confidence. But as her children grew up, she began to fade into the background. She let them make all the decisions, about family gatherings, about where she would spend the holidays, even about her own schedule. She stopped voicing her opinions. She ignored the times they spoke to her with a sharp or dismissive tone. "I just want to keep the family together," she told me once. But what happened? Her children stopped valuing her input. They saw her as someone who would always adjust, always agree, always stay quiet. In her effort to avoid conflict, she lost her voice. The first step to regaining respect is not to demand it. It's to stop acting like you need it. Start setting boundaries. Say no when something doesn't work for you. Speak your mind, even if they don't like what you have to say. The moment you start respecting yourself, they will begin to see you differently. And over time, that respect will return, not because you begged for it, but because you lived in a way that made it impossible to deny. Action 2: Don't argue, lead by example. When your children dismiss your opinions or treat you disrespectfully, your first instinct might be to argue. To remind them of everything you've done. To demand that they listen. But here's something that will save you years of frustration: arguing never works. Think about it, when was the last time you convinced someone to respect you by shouting louder? Respect isn't won through force. It's earned through presence, through composure, through the way you carry yourself when others are testing your patience. If you meet disrespect with anger, you confirm something dangerous, that they have the power to rattle you. I knew a man named Frank, a retired teacher. In the classroom, he was respected, even admired. But at home, his grown children treated him like an afterthought. They ignored his advice, rolled their eyes when he spoke, and sometimes even laughed when he corrected them. At first, Frank fought back. He argued. He tried to prove that he still deserved their respect. But the harder he fought, the less they listened. Then one day, Frank decided to change his approach. He stopped arguing. He started listening, really listening. He stopped chasing respect with words and instead carried himself as if he already had it. His voice became calm, steady, and confident. He didn't need to win conversations anymore. And slowly, his children noticed. They began to see a man who wasn't desperate for their approval. A man who didn't need to prove his worth. A man who simply was. Strong, self-assured, and unshaken. If your children don't respect you, don't fight them for it. Show them what respect looks like in the way you treat yourself. Keep your dignity. Speak with confidence. And never lower yourself to their level. Because when you hold your ground with grace, they will feel it, and in time, they will follow your lead. Action 3. Withdraw your emotional dependence. This one can be tough to hear. One of the hardest lessons in later life is that you cannot depend on your children for your emotional fulfillment. Yes, you love them deeply. Yes, you want them to love and respect you in return. But the moment they sense that you need them in order to feel valued, the balance in the relationship shifts. Here's the reality: people, even your own children, respect those who are emotionally independent. When you rely on them for validation, attention, or affection, it creates pressure. And instead of feeling grateful, they may start feeling burdened. That's when impatience, irritation, or even avoidance starts creeping in. I once knew a woman named Helen. She was a warm-hearted mother who had given everything to her children. As they grew older and busier, she found herself waiting by the phone, hoping they'd call. When they didn't, she called them. Again. And again. She reminded them how much she missed them, how she wished they'd visit more. But instead of bringing them closer, it pushed them away. Her calls became something they had to return, not something they wanted to. Then one day, Helen decided to stop waiting. She stopped calling first. She stopped measuring her happiness by how often they reached out. She joined a painting class. She started walking with a neighbor every morning. She went to the movies with friends. And something amazing happened: her children started calling more. They began to respect her time, to notice that she had her own life. The less you depend on your children to make you feel needed, the more they will genuinely value your presence. When you stand strong on your own, they will admire you, not because they have to, but because they want to. Action 4. Set boundaries, and enforce them. One of the main reasons children lose respect for their parents is because the parents let them. If you allow them to speak to you with disrespect, to ignore your time, to dismiss your feelings, they will keep doing it. Not because they're bad people. But because people, especially family, will always treat you the way you allow them to. Setting boundaries doesn't mean cutting them off or starting fights. It means calmly deciding what behavior you will and will not accept, and making sure you stick to it. I knew a man named Robert. He had spent his life running a company with discipline and confidence. But at home, with his adult children, he became passive. They interrupted him when he spoke, mocked his suggestions, and even criticized his personal choices. At first, Robert stayed quiet. He told himself it wasn't worth the fight. But over time, he realized that every time he stayed silent, he was silently agreeing to their behavior. So he changed. When his son interrupted him, he said, "I'll finish when you're ready to listen." When his daughter dismissed his opinion, he replied, "You don't have to agree with me, but I expect to be heard." And when they pushed past those limits, he made it clear, if they couldn't speak with basic respect, he wouldn't be available to them. At first, they pushed back. But eventually, they understood, their father wasn't backing down. He valued himself enough to demand respect. And they started giving it to him. Action 5. Stop giving without appreciation. One of the fastest ways to lose respect is to keep giving to people who don't value it. As parents, we do this more than we realize. We give time, money, favors, emotional support, even when it's not acknowledged, even when it's taken for granted. But when you give endlessly without appreciation, you don't build gratitude. You build expectation. I once knew a man named George. He was endlessly generous with his children, financially, emotionally, practically. But instead of gratitude, he was met with complaints. And when he finally needed their help, they were too busy. So George stopped overextending. He stopped offering help before it was even requested. And most importantly, he started saying no. At first, they were shocked. But over time, they began to value his generosity again, because it was no longer unlimited. It was a gift, not an obligation. Action 6. Build a life outside of them. Perhaps the most powerful way to regain respect is to show your children that your happiness does not depend on them. If your entire sense of purpose revolves around them, they may begin to see you as someone without their own life. I knew a widow named Eleanor. After her husband died, she poured everything into her children's lives. But the more she clung, the more they pulled away. When she finally started building her own life, joining clubs, volunteering, traveling, something changed. Her children reached out more. They admired her independence. They respected her again. Final thoughts. Respect from your children cannot be demanded. It must be inspired, by the way you live, by the way you hold boundaries, and by the way you carry yourself. Stop chasing their approval. Lead by example. Withdraw emotional dependence. Set and enforce boundaries. Stop giving without appreciation. Build a full life outside of them. Do these things, and you won't just regain their respect, you'll regain your own.